So folks, today we're going to talk about Alberta real estate. What's happening there? What's the buzz about it? Both cities, Calgary and Edmonton, these are the two main cities. That's where most of the people are migrating, and that's what's happening with the housing market there. It has been going up, especially the Calgary has literally boomed. Now, most of the prices have already doubled, if not more, especially for houses for like detached houses in last 2 to 3 years. And now the same trend has started for Edmonton. But more so, the Calgary has already proven to be a market which is tried and tested. Despite the high interest rate, that market kept growing. And one of the reason is that there's a lot of people who, let's say for example, if you are working a decent job which gives you like $20 per hour, there's nothing you can afford with that kind of money in Ontario, especially a decent if you want to live in that property yourself. And then a lot of people, investors in the same boat as well, they don't have enough down payment, they can't get qualified for a mortgage. And especially in Ontario, let's say if you live in GTA and that's the kind of finances you have, you can invest in GTA, and if you go outside of GTA, you need 20% down, so don't really have options to invest either. So that's one of the reasons is driving a lot of investors from Ontario, not only investors, the first time home buyer, that obviously that's their preferred choice, cities like Edmonton and Calgary. Because in Edmonton, for example, you can buy a 1-bedroom condo starting from $190. And that's all-inclusive prices. There's no other prices included in it. All you need is a small 20% down payment for that. To start to book it, you only need 5%. So that's the kind of opportunity that's available in those markets. That's the kind of investor who goes in there. If you are someone who can afford to invest with 20% down, for example, in London, you should do that. That's what I do as well. We invest a lot in London, markets like London, Windsor, Kitchener, if you have even a higher budget. But at the same time, there's a lot of people who are not in a position where they can put that kind of a high down payment, or they get qualified for that kind of mortgages. But what Alberta allows you, most of these are pre-construction projects, so you're not putting a down payment right now. On top of that, folks who are in an uncertain position, let's say if they don't have a PR yet, and they might get it within a year, but given the laws, how things have been happening in Canada, it could get delayed even further. So for those people, the opportunity exists in Alberta where they know like, hey, if I book this unit today, let's say in 1 year I get a possession of it, and in 1 year if I don't get a PR, I can still be able to close it because there is no foreign buyers tax in Alberta. And then there is all the rest of the taxes are also, there's no land transfer tax, so you save a good chunk of money by not paying these taxes, which literally goes into the pocket of local governments or the provincial government. So you can save all that money. So you can literally all you have to do is a pure down payment and then $1,000 to $1,500 for a lawyer fee at the time of closing, and that's all your cost is. So it's easy to qualify. The barrier of entry is easy, and on top of that, it's a landlord friendly state. It's the only province, I think, other than Saskatchewan in Canada, which is a landlord friendly. So if you have issues with your tenant, you can always give them a 2 months notice, and then they have to move out. There is no like landlord tenant board issues like we have in Ontario. For example, the BC has the same issues where you have to deal with the tenants. So like that process is also simplified. And then there is a huge rental demand. So there is a demand in the market, and that's kind of one of the reasons why investors who won't be able to invest that kind of money in Ontario, for example, the deals are not been able to happen in Ontario, especially if you live in GTA. For them, this is a golden ticket opportunity where you can go out and buy a pre-construction project. You don't need all the money right now. You can start with 5% down payment, which in most cases is usually $10,000 to $15,000 depending on which property you buy, and that kind of allows you to get started with the investment journey. And once you are in a way better position, you can either sell that eventually get to a point where you can invest in GTA if that's something that you are looking for. Or there's a lot of people who are just can't afford to live in Ontario anymore. They just don't see themselves, even after a few years of hard work, to be able to save enough money to live a decent life in Ontario. And that's one of the other segment of investors, or the mostly first time home buyer. Those are going to that province, especially in a city like Edmonton, where even if you do a decent job, you can afford a very good living. You can afford to buy your own house. You can live in your own instead of paying someone else's mortgage by renting those properties. And you can get started with 200, and these are brand new properties you get. These are not houses which are 40 years old or 50 years old. These are brand new properties that you get starting from prices 190K condos. And if you go to townhouse somewhere around 320, 330, you can get started with a 3-bedroom condo. The 2-bedroom townhomes are even starts from around 270 to 280. So if the barrier of entry, you get a brand new home and they are very affordable, rules are in your favor. So especially those, that segment of buyers who has that limitation in terms of amount of money they can gather for down payment or the qualification they can get for mortgage, this is a huge opportunity for those people, and that's one of the reasons is driving this demand in that Calgary market. And then there are seasonal investors who see the opportunity where in a province where the prices have been stagnant for a while, now there has been a huge growth push there. There's a lot of companies going in Calgary, and then those seasonal investors are seeing the opportunity that, hey, I can see the 5 years time the Calgary market is going to go double from there on. So those are also ones who are investing in there. They're buying multiple units at the same time. Same thing happened with me. A lot of my seasonal investors who invest in London, invest in Windsor, buy in Kitchener, owns a house in GTA, and now they are also buying in Edmonton. And because the price, they see it as a low investment opportunity, at the same time they are willing to hold or have the capability to hold those property for next 5 years and see those growth come down. Because one of the other reason, especially if you are like an investor who lives in Ontario and doesn't have any plan to move to Alberta, you also get a satisfaction that, hey, like even there is no tenant issues in my end, it's a landlord friendly state. So it's very easy to manage from a distance compared to what happens in Ontario. If you don't do your due diligence with tenants properly, you can run into a lot of trouble, and it has been happening with a lot of our clients, happened with me as well. But eventually, if you are someone who's starting out in Ontario, you have to be very careful while choosing a tenant. You have to do a lot of due diligence, which isn't the case in Alberta. So that's also one of the reasons why a lot of seasonal investors are turning their way for a long distance investment where it's very easy to manage as well. You hire a company, give them the keys for the house. It's a brand new property, so not a lot of maintenance involved. On top of that, you have that friendliness towards the like the landlords from the government perspective. So that's another reason one of the seasonal investors are also looking into that market. So that's our Alberta market update.